I was on my way home after dropping my boyfriend off at his house, which is a few hours away from where I live. We'd spent the whole day out by a lake and having a wonderful time. The scenery was absolutely beautiful, and our love for each other was at its fullest. It was about 11 p.m.-ish when I felt nature calling. However, I was driving in the middle of nowhere, with nothing but the road and a few trees in my line of sight. Any rest stops or buildings with public toilet access must have been a few miles away. I sucked it up and kept driving. It felt like hours had gone by, and not a single building was to be seen. I grew impatient. Right when I was about to pull over and do my business behind a nearby tree, I saw it. A building. It was lit up as if the Lord himself was lighting the way. I got close enough to see a car in the parking lot with its driver's side door wide open. Someone must have really needed to go, I snickered to myself and pulled into the parking lot. There were a few vibrant signs spread around the building's windows that read, "Convenience store, open 24 hours, snacks, drinks, and public bathroom access." I entered the building and gazed around, looking for the bathrooms. My eyes landed on two doors, one with the symbol of a man and the other of a woman. Almost sprinting, I made my way to the women's bathroom, only to be stopped by another sign, reading out of order due to maintenance in small print. I mentally cursed and looked at the men's bathroom. Knocking, I asked if anyone was using the bathroom and explained my situation. I got no answer. Slowly pulling the door open, I peeked through the small opening. For the most part, it seemed empty. I could see that someone's shoes were visible from the bottom of one of the stalls. I closed the door and gave the man his privacy. Flickering my eyes back over to the woman's bathroom, I could hear noises coming from inside. At first, I assumed it was an employee cleaning up until the sound of extremely heavy breathing filled my ears. I leaned my ear against the door and listened for anything else. It was silent for a few moments. That's when I heard the most gut-wrenching scream I've ever heard come from a woman's mouth. It sounded so horrid, so anguished, as if the woman in there was experiencing the most excruciating pain. There were a few audible sobs in between the heavy breathing afterward. Soon after, the sobs grew louder and louder, followed by the sounds of fast footsteps heading toward the door. I backed away. Right when the woman on the other side pounded on the door, it seemed like she was throwing all of her weight on the door in an attempt to open it. Terrified, I panicked and ran into the men's bathroom, locking the door shut. My thoughts were racing as I slowly got away from the door and entered the only other stall, which was next to the one the man was in. I began relieving myself, still shaken up from the previous encounter. I didn't want to be there at that moment, but there was nothing I could do. Just then I heard a door open from afar. I immediately realized it was the woman's bathroom door. It shut, and there was a rattling noise coming from the men's bathroom door as well. Whoever was in the women's bathroom was trying to get inside. The door was unlocked and swung open by an incredible force. I stopped relieving myself and put my feet on the toilet, to give the impression that nobody was in the stall. Surprisingly, the man in the next stall didn't budge an inch. From the bottom of my stall, I could see someone's bare legs and feet, blood dripping down both legs and onto the gray tiled floor. My eyes widened as the person took a step inside the room, followed by another and another until they were facing my stall door. I was frozen, absolutely terrified. A woman's voice quietly huffed before trying to open my stall door. I was now crying, but tried concealing it to the best of my abilities. The woman on the other side of the door gurgled up the words, "Are you stuck?" Her voice sounded sweet, yet maniacal. The woman chuckled before getting down on her knees. At that point, I stood on the toilet, desperately looking everywhere for a way out. I looked directly above myself and saw a vent. Reaching into my hair, I pulled out a bobby pin and tried picking at the vent, hoping it would open. The woman chuckled again, but even louder this time. Drawing my eyes away from the vent, I could see the woman's mangled face peeking from under the stall door. A wicked smile was plastered on her face, and she didn't look human at all. Her dark brown hair was partially covering her doll-like eyes. She had fair skin covered in bruises, open cuts, and small bugs. I will always remember her face as I witnessed a maggot slither around her cheeks. To say she looked disgusting was truly an understatement. She looked like she'd been dead for a few days. I panicked once again and ended up dropping my bobby pin on the floor. Quickly bending down to pick it up, I noticed that the woman hadn't moved. It looked like she was entertained by watching me struggle. I managed to loosen the vent and ultimately got it open. That's when I heard the sound of bones cracking under the stall. I turned to see the woman contorting her body to fit under the gap under the stall. I let out a petrified scream and tried climbing my way into the vent. The woman grabbed my ankle, cackling even louder. The adrenaline in my body was pumping, and I swiftly kicked her rotting face, sending her flying into the stall door. I climbed into the vent and crawled my way to what looked to be the back side of the store. I threw myself out of the vent and ran towards my car. The woman was nowhere to be seen, so I got in my car and drove off. When I was a safe distance away, I called everyone, my parents, my best friends, and my boyfriend. Everyone except my boyfriend brushed me off. Instead of freaking out, he began to tell me of a time he went to the same convenience store and experienced similar things. I was too stunned for words. I asked him why he didn't tell me about what happened to him, to which he replied, "The legend says that if you tell people, they'll share the same fate, or even worse." "You didn't tell anyone else, right?" I smashed the brakes of my car and sobbed loudly. My boyfriend explained that in his town, this convenience store had a very demonic history, and everyone who goes in doesn't come out the same. That is, if they survive. Its bright lights are meant to attract people into going in where their nightmares become reality. The woman that I saw in the bathroom was one of the victims of the store, and the man in the stall had received an unfortunate fate because of her. I stayed on the call with my boyfriend until he went to sleep, and I went home. Here I am, 2 years later, writing this in my car after attending one of my best friend's funeral. I have so many regrets. What started as the most romantic day of my life ended in such horror and pain. I caused my friend's death, and soon everyone else I told will face the same ending. I've cried so much since the incident, and I forced my boyfriend to move in with me, so I wouldn't have to drive past the store again. I've hated myself more than imaginable, and I'm not the same person I used to be. I've been going to therapy since then, and I'm doing a little bit better. Although I still get nightmares of the woman's face, my boyfriend has stuck with me this entire time, but I know he could possibly have the same fate. I just hope you all here won't judge me after writing all this. I just needed to get this off my chest. I worked in a small office building with only one women's bathroom. It was small, but I loved it. All my coworkers were men and they drove me crazy. The bathroom was the only place where I could escape their constant annoyance. I also loved it because it was always nicely decorated and empty. I never bumped into anyone from the different offices. Maybe they were all composed of men as well. But whatever the reason, I took a lot of bathroom breaks just to play Animal Crossing away from my colleagues. But then I started encountering someone else in the bathroom. There were only 2 stalls, so I had to take the one next to her. I only knew she was in there because the door was closed and I could smell what she was up to. I sat awkwardly, wondering if I should pretend to pee or just play on my phone like I had planned. I did not hear any noise from the other stall. I felt too weird, so I left the stall, pretended to wash my hands, and didn't look back. The next day I noticed that the same stall was occupied. This time I actually had to pee, so I locked the door and did my business. I still heard no noise from the other stall. I cleared my throat loudly. Nothing. I sighed. Whoever this woman was, she was ruining my alone time. For a full week she was in the stall every time I went inside. It was driving me crazy. I dreaded going to the bathroom, but I was still stuck with my obnoxious coworkers. Finally, I decided to at least find out who this girl was. I walked in confidentially. Like all the times before, one stall was occupied. I went to the other stall and sat down. "Weird weather, huh?" I said out loud. I waited for a second. There was no response. "Just making conversation." She didn't respond. Fed up, I left my stall and stood right outside hers. "I think we're the only 2 girls in this entire building. Maybe we should have each other's back. A simple hello isn't hard." I can't explain why I got so angry. Maybe it's because she stripped me of my alone place, or maybe it was because she smelled up my perfectly decorated bathroom. But really, I think it was because I hated my job so damn much that I needed someone to take my anger out on. "Why won't you answer me?" I screamed as I kicked open the door to her stall. My own anger surprised me and I stumbled backwards. I almost didn't see her, but when I did, my stomach turned. Wedged into the side of the stall was a woman around my age with ice-pale skin. Her eyes were open and staring blankly. Erupting from her throat was a giant wound with mountains of dried blood. The blood trail pooled between her breasts and fell perfectly into the toilet bowl. I screamed and ran out of the bathroom. The police classified it as a suicide. Apparently the woman didn't work in the building, but must have come inside to kill herself. She had been there rotting for weeks. Since then, I haven't gone into the bathroom.
I used the one in the McDonald's across the street. There's just one thing I don't understand. If she killed herself, why wasn't there a knife?